Oh, this is a video on surviving torture. So I'm essentially a torture survivor, and we're going to go over the brutal torture that I've endured in my life. Now, this goes all the way up to the current date essentially, because what I have been doing these last 2 years was a complete brutalizing of myself, hammering a nail into my skull like a Japanese person hammering, how they in Japan how they hammer the nail down. Essentially, every single day what I do is hammer a fucking nail into my skull. I'm constantly brutalizing myself with my own words, and I cannot stop doing it. I am brutalizing myself to the point of no return so that I have a complete understanding of this concept called the concept of death, and that is what I have been doing for the last 2 years. Thus, I have become explicitly badass in a way, but also extremely exhausted, because hammering a nail into yourself, no matter what the fuck you do, is extremely exhausting and is preventing me from functioning, let alone having a physical disability that makes it very hard to even accomplish anything productive. Now, saying no matter what I do, I must hammer a nail into myself so that I become as real as I possibly can. And I've already been able to do that, like managing to escape the media poison that poisoned my mind for many, many years, destroyed my mind into believing in leftist ideology. I had now become a Republican Muslim, which is something that I actually feel like I am very proud of accomplishing that. Now, let's state for the record, Lain Iwakura is a cisgender female, although appearing like a man in this video, she is a cisgender female who doesn't have a body and is essentially the void of outer space. But that's besides the point. The point I'm making is that I've been brutalizing myself and continue to do so every single day, so much so that it is preventing me from even like I just won't apply for a job because I find the brutalizing more important. I find it more important that I actually understand the world better than sitting in a box and doing absolutely nothing so I can get dollar bills. It doesn't satisfy me. I find money to be the root of all evil. And essentially, what I'm saying is, what is the torture that I've endured? Well, the torture that I've endured was essentially since the age of 16. At the age of 16, I first attempted suicide. For my entire high school years, I was a suicidal person, and it culminated in me eventually starting to cut my wrists. So there are actually self harm scars on my arm. But the torture also involves an obsessive compulsive disorder where I had to fucking do things in order to stop these intrusive thoughts from happening. But I want to make it clear that the intrusive thoughts I experience, I now take risperidol for, which helps and sort of just makes them go away. But they're still there and they still ruin my life. What I'm saying is, they are separate from my schizophrenia. My schizophrenia is 100% utterly, absolutely beautiful. My schizophrenia is this beautiful fucking woman, this beautiful, ancient, flawless woman. And my schizophrenia is 100% absolutely beautiful. When I look upon the moon, it's separate from my intrusive thoughts. My schizophrenia is absolutely beautiful. When I look at the moon, I experience this lunar energy, or when I look at the sun, I get solar energy. Whenever the moon goes out, my mind becomes more analog or horrifying. So I'm always scared whenever night comes. I'm not afraid of the dark per se, but I'm afraid of the night because I become so horrifying during the night. But I am this absolutely beautiful woman inside my own mind, and also my body is not human, so that is something I have to deal with. Essentially, my body is so physically weak and always in pain. My body is so weak and it's always in pain that I'm prevented from really accomplishing much of anything, where it's hard for me to even sit in a chair because it makes me tired to sit in a chair that I have to lie on my back to reduce this pain. And I've been taking essentially just like Tylenol to help with it. So just on top of that, what happened was the suicide attempt, and when I was 16 I attempted to jump into the highway, but then it got really bad because when I turned 18 I started learning about drugs, And I didn't really start doing drugs until I was 20. And when I was 20, I did drugs from the age of 20 to 24, and then a little bit more. Once I got sober at the age of 24, I still did drugs a few times, but not very much. Because that's when I smoked crack a few times in the streets and realized, wow, this world is actually very dangerous, especially in the streets of these cities. The world is very dangerous. And I was smoking crack in the streets. But let's talk about those 4 years I was doing drugs. During these 4 years I was doing drugs, over the course of these 4 years I was raped 40 times. So I've been raped 40 times by multiple different men over the course of 4 years from the age of 20 to 24, whilst also abusing extremely high doses of drugs, including poison, which is marijuana, which is not even a real drug at all, in my opinion. Now, I had also done other drugs. In fact, I think I've even tried crystal meth, but I'm not sure if it was really crystal meth. But I did like every single drug in the book, like mostly cough syrup and spice was really what I was addicted to. But when I would smoke spice, I would trip balls so hard that one time I smoked spice and almost died because I was screaming and thrashing on the floor. And then they called the cops and they injected me with ketamine and put me in the hospital. Now, during this time, I had been to so many psych wards, it was insane that I kept going to psych wards because, let's say, I had almost absolutely no money. So in order to get my cough syrup, I would actually shoplift it from the stores and drink as much cough syrup as I possibly could. But you see, the sheer doses of cough syrup and poison I was consuming actually destroyed my lungs specifically, that for 2 years, when I got sober, I was hyperventilating every single day. But anyways, during this time that I was abusing these drugs, I started bleeding internally, and I was also hospitalized so many times because I was so close to death so many times. And also during this time that I'd been, over the course of those 4 years, I was raped 40 times. And then because of this, it was just really bad. I don't know what else to say. It was like a fucking nightmare. And then because of this, I spent the last 2 years trying to figure out what happened because it was so dramatic that I literally can't remember what happened. Also, another reason I was being hospitalized was for slitting my wrists. There are self-harm scars on my wrist over this tattoo. I mean, it's really, really bad. Really, really bad. Really, really bad. But it's like, does it get fucking worse? Because I was also confused ideologically that I thought I had this ideology when really I'm not an ideological person at all. I'm a simple, flawless woman who's a Republican MRA Muslim, which is something I had to realize a couple years after I got sober. And now here I am. I've made it out alive. But several months ago, someone assaulted me. A retarded person beat the shit out of me. And then I sort of realized, wow, all criminals are fucking pussies. If you commit a crime, it's like, boom, you're a fucking pussy for the rest of your life. If you commit a crime, you're a fucking pussy. And also because there was people who I was involved with and talking to in real life that many people I had fallen in love with. Lain Iwakura is in love with about maybe 20 plus people. I haven't kept count because there's so many of them. And some of them are people whose names I don't even know because I fell in love at first sight with them. But then there are others whose names I know, essentially. But what I'm stating is I'm in love with more than 20 people, I think, at this point. I haven't kept count. Because Lain is a polyamorous person who would only be with one. But by a brutalizing of myself, an experience that I had gone through, I am so fucking badass, it's insane. I'm essentially the smartest person who's ever lived. And I just keep that shit on lock because I have no choice but to present as a man despite being a cisgender female. Even if my boobs or vagina hurt, it doesn't matter. You have to fucking present as a man so that you can function in the real world. Now this is all the brutal torture that I've endured. And let's say that in 2023 or 2022 to 2023, I was becoming so delusional from drug abuse, I completely lost my mind, and during this time, I was walking all over the city like a madman, fucking screaming at people, when in reality, I pop out of it in 2023, by the end of 2023, at the age of 24, and realize, wow, I should get sober and end this fucking madness that I've been going through because I was like practically brain dead. And during this time that I was brain dead, I experienced, at least a couple of the rapes that I experienced, but actually more. And saying, if you want to say I'm a bad person because of this, when I'm the sweetest person in the world, then you're just wrong. Saying I'm a bad person is a complete falsehood. And that's what I have to say to anyone who has ever disavowed me due to the losing of my mind that I experienced before. No, I would never hurt anybody. I do not wish to commit a crime. I would never kill someone. I would never do anything like that. And I'm only here to help people.